102 million. That's our population count to date. What does this figure tell us? Some would say that it's a huge challenge, and others would see it, would say the number is a huge opportunity. Compared to the surface area of this country, this number is quite adequate because we have over 40% of our territory that is eligible for development without any natural obstacles. However, due to the concentration of the density in a certain area or in certain areas, this number becomes problematic. That is why the development effort is racing against time on all fronts. Priorities are across the board because in order to keep up with the needs of the growing population rate, the country needs a gross domestic product, a GDP figure that surpasses the rate of growth. There is a certain formula to that. One would desire more people because this would mean more labor and also more consumption. But that depends on the quality of the human development process. So there is another priority. To sum up, the national development projects undertaken can all be considered priorities, and the important criteria for such projects is that they all have to be economical, meaning that they generate income and are not considered a burden on future generations. Good evening. I'm Ayman Salah and you're watching the Business Insider here on Nile TV International. Our weekly program tackles events affecting economies and business, and we aim to bring you the inside story. Welcome back. Let's start with some news. The first news item is that the government stepped in to rescue the cement industry, and producers were given the green light to cut production by at least 10% by the Egyptian Competition Authority, known as the ECA. The new quotas will take effect on the 15th of July and will extend for 1 year. They set a 10.69% baseline cut and give additional room for cuts of 2.81% per production line and more for older factories. The proposal was submitted by 23 cement companies to reduce the supply glut crippling the industry. Cement players view this as a positive step taken by the government because the supply is currently much more than the demand. Medhat Stefanos, who heads the Federation of Egyptian Industries Building Materials Chamber, said that the industry overwhelmingly welcomes the news, and we will welcome engineer Stefanos, who will join us in a moment to tell us more about this new development here on the Business Insider. And the second news item we have for you tonight is that the Oil Ministry announced yesterday that the World Bank and the European Union became observers at the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. Members of the forum have agreed to bring the World Bank and the European Union into the organization as observers during a meeting in Cairo on Tuesday. The Cairo-based forum aims to serve as a platform for regional natural gas players to develop resources and infrastructure, cooperate on exploration, and regulate the region's natural gas policies. Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, Israel, Italy, Jordan, and Palestine are all founding members. France later joined as a member, while the US is taking part as an observer. When we come back, Medhat Stefanos will talk to us about the latest government decision to step in to save the cement industry. He'll also be talking to us about the development in the industrial sector. Medhat Stefanos, the Vice Chairman of the Building Materials Chamber in the Federation of Egyptian Industries, right after the break. Stay with the Business Insider. Welcome back. You're watching the Business Insider. We're talking about industrial development post 30th of June. With us tonight, engineer Medhat Stefanos. He is a vice chairman of the Chamber of Building Materials in the Federation of Egyptian Industries. and other titles. Pleasure having you with us on the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with a report on industrial development in the country and then start our discussion. Stay with the Business Insider.
Industry assumes a high priority in the country's economic growth and diversification policies. The government aims to increase high technology exports and boost the value of the manufacturing sector. To further enhance output and investment, Egypt adopts attractive policies including the development of industrial zones and special economic zones. Its retail industry benefits from a growing population, while challenges such as the pandemic has slowed anticipated growth in the short term, but steps have been taken to offset repercussions on the economy, such as raising online payment limits, increasing tax exemptions, and supporting informal workers. Several factors make industry attractive to foreign investors, according to the Oxford Business Group, including the country's location between key markets in Africa, Europe, and Asia, relatively low-cost labor, and a number of new infrastructure projects. The Egyptian government has focused its development plans on strengthening and positioning the country as an industrial and manufacturing hub by leveraging its geographic location as well as relatively affordable labor and operation costs. Egypt's energy supplies and pricing have impacted industrial segments in different ways. In petrochemicals, for example, there has been increased investment in export potential with the country's move towards self-sufficiency in gas. Developing the petrochemical industry is part of the effort to add value to oil and gas production. The industry sector seeks to grow based on competitiveness, diversity, innovation, and job creation. Exports and increasing local production is a major objective, while one-stop shops for foreign investors entering the Egyptian market have helped attract international operators aiming to establish partnerships with local companies. Part of Egypt's industrial growth plan includes spurring both domestic and foreign investments. The government has introduced several reforms and initiatives towards this end, including economic free zones, legislation, and reformed industrial procedures. 2019 investment inflows to Egypt increased by 5% to $8.5 billion, retaining its position as Africa's largest foreign direct investment or FDI recipient. Between July and September 2020, FDI inflows measured in at $4.2 billion. Similarly to past trends, investment was concentrated in the oil sector at 55.4%, followed by services at 23%, manufacturing at 8.3%, construction at 5.9%, and agriculture at 0.2%. Growth in Egypt and outside of oil and gas has been driven by government objectives over the past few years, whether they be initiatives to build power plants, factories, or water and transport infrastructure. But as government projects taper off, the private sector will need to increase investment in industry and manufacturing to fill the gap. In 2015, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi issued a decree declaring the area around the Suez Canal to be a specialized economic zone. While much of Egypt's industrial development is taking place near the Suez Canal, plans are also underway to build up facilities throughout the country. In October 2019, the Industrial Development Authority published the Electronic Industrial Investment Map, featuring 5.2 million square meters of industrial land divided into 2,050 lots. The lands are located in 13 industrial zones throughout the country, offering 1,510 opportunities in engineering, chemicals, textiles, metals, pharmaceuticals, food processing, and mining. While the second phase of the project features 1,705 industrial lots across 4.2 million square meters in 12 governorates. Industry 3 is set to be a key source of job creation throughout the country as the population expands and the government shifts to developing the manufacturing capacity of regions throughout the country. According to the OBG, the industrial sector is likely to maintain an upward trend in the medium term.
Welcome back to the Business Insider. I have the pleasure to be joined by Engineer Medhat Stefanos, the Vice Chairman of the Chamber of Building Materials in the Federation of Egyptian Industries. A pleasure having you once more in this show.
Thank you.
Let's start, before we comment on the report, let's start with the latest decision to cut cement production, the government's move to save the industry, if you will. I believe you said the sector is overwhelmed.
Actually, the sector was suffering for more than 3 years now from facing all the complications of the worldwide changes and also the local challenges. So it was a very pressured situation on the industry itself, and actually there was no doubt that the government has to interfere because nothing will be done. You know, we have a law for anti-competition. We have needs for the market and for the national project. So something has to happen, has to be happened or taken by an
regulating the market. If
exactly, it's a kind of regulating the market. So that's why it's turned at the end to the Anti-Competition Authority, because we have to be aligned with the law. We have to save the sake of the economy from one side and the sake of the industry from the other side, without or keeping the balance between both. The problem in the market was created because of the huge surplus
supply.
And at the same time, the cost continue increase, and it was not reflected on the market because of this huge pressure of the surplus, oversupply. So we come to a conclusion. Actually, it was a kind of interaction between the industry and different authorities, concerned authorities in the country. And we came to a conclusion that something should be taken in consideration of controlling or setting a kind of cap for the production, which can achieve the healthy balance between the supply and demand, and at the same time protect the market from being inflated in prices or what exactly.
You remind me of OPEC here. You're trying to create a balance between production and supply, right? Production and demand.
Yes, actually, this is a mechanism created by the Anti-Competition Authority, which will be reviewed regularly, and in case of any need for any change in this mechanism, it's very easy to take the decision within a minute. So this will, let's say, make the industry have the chance to protect the small players specifically, because they were the most people, the most plants affected by this situation, and also help the companies to operate in a healthy environment, having the chance to implement their investment programs, which contribute to the quality, the environment, the emissions, everything. All this kind of development, which has to be considered in the industry, needs a lot of money to be invested. So if the business itself is not generating enough money
profit
to do that, even we are
how will
not
it
talking,
sustain?
It's actually it's a kind of avoiding losses more than achieving or
profit.
generating profits. Because the current situation is really miserable in that,
for the companies.
in that
Here, are you
perspective.
talking about certain companies? Are you talking a certain level of companies? Small, not small, but local companies, international companies? What scale of companies are we talking about? Or it is
It's
it across the board?
It's across the board.
Across
But
the
the impact is varying from a company to another based on a lot of factors, which was considered actually in the mechanism. So the mechanism put a kind of flat deduction for everyone, and then
10%.
yes, which 10 point something,
10.68.
yeah. And then there was another kind of I would not say discrimination, but variations based on the lifetime of the plant, the number of production lines, and these kind of things. So you can make a kind of pro rata for the expenses of the agreement.
Which is what you would expect from a government that is trying to encourage investments to play the role of the regulator. This is a move that can be described as an interference to regulate the market, which is a welcome interference, or would some say this shouldn't have happened?
No, actually, I do believe that this role of being regulating everything related to business through the government is a very positive message to the foreign investors that there is a system in this country which can interfere in the right time with the right decision to help the economy, to help the industries, to help the investors, and also to help the market. And this is very important. This, I look at it as a very positive message.
Interference.
However, it's happened after a
3
little
years,
bit
you said.
long time, but always we say later better than never.
Better late than never. So the Anti-Monopoly Authority, the Competition Protection Anti-Monopoly Authority, interfered at this stage in order to regulate the market, safeguard the interests of both the market and the industry itself. This is a welcome decision you see from the Building Materials Chamber. This is reflected in other the global situation, if you will, in Egypt. How do you view the efforts made so far? You're talking here about a reform process that has started since 2014, a time when you were suffering from no energy, no electricity, no fuel. You in the cement sector suffered from this. I won't count all the different reforms that happened and the projects that took place, but I would say that a huge effort was made. If you are to sum up this period and say, and this is where we are now, what would you say?
Actually, we have to consider that we went through a period where everything was uncertainty. Everything was the period between 2011 and 2014, actually.
Uncertain, unstable?
Uncertainty, instability. The whole situation was plasticizing. There was a lack of control in lots of things due to the overall situation. And this has a negative impact on the industries in general and on the... However, during this period, the most effective sector which was supporting the economy was the industry. Because the industries are, it's an investment on the ground, people working, a lot of jobs, and they have to continue work in order to continue live. And they are depending on what? Local community. Not like tourism, as an example, which...
Local consumption, you mean.
Yeah. And I mean also that the nature of this business is different than any other business. Creating a product or manufacturing a product, this is the real value added to the economy. And this is the backbone you can depend on on the crisis. So look at the industries in general. From that perspective, is very essential to be highlighted to the decision makers, so they can do whatever needed in order to facilitate the production process in all industrial sectors, and at the same time to give the opportunity for all these industries to be in a competitive position, which will contribute by default to the exports of the country. Because at the end, the market, the local market, is limited by the number of people, let's say.
And the purchasing power, the consumption capabilities, and so on.
Of course. We all know that the buying power declined a lot with the devaluation. So the only way to recover is to increase your production and to increase production capability, utilize to the maximum or to the optimum level the assets you have in this sector, and export as much as possible.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Capitalize on the assets you have.
Yeah. I would say that due to the high cost of all industries, I would argue that we are limited to our local consumption.
Meaning?
And this means that you are not producing 100% your capacity. Lots of industry is operating 60%, 50%.
Why is that?
Because there is no market. You cannot compete on outside the country.
Why?
Because of the high cost.
Where is the high cost coming from?
Coming from having a lot of liabilities on the producer in each step of production.
Such as?
The raw materials, the equipments, the licenses, the value of the lands.
VAT? VAT?
I would depend on the VAT to secure.
At which stage?
The resources of the country from whatever industry, but on the final product.
Not on each?
Not on each step. So you can produce easily with the lowest cost as a producer, then you can be motivated to explore new markets outside the country to export, and this will encourage you to expand your business as well, if needed, to satisfy both local market and outside the customers in different markets around you. And we have a lot of opportunities in the area around. We are in an area of population 1.5 billion. If we focus only on Africa and the Middle East, and not looking for the high standard markets like Europe or United States, and يعني make whatever needed in order to be available in the right time with the right price. This will help the economy.
Some countries subsidize the production process for their industries in order to compete externally and to increase their exports. Would we need to incentivize the production capability? For example, if you look at the energy cost, natural gas, for example, do you need to incentivize the industry by, say, subsidizing energy cost, or is this something that we shouldn't be considering nowadays?
We should stop talking about subsidization, because it's now having a bad reputation as
and
a word.
A bad effect on the process.
No, forget about the process. I'm just talking about what is the perception of this word. Of this word, the subsidization. No. It has a bad meaning for the community. Okay, I would think about it from what? From the what we call it, the supply chain. The supply chain, meaning that if I'm using natural gas in producing whatever product, it's a part of the production process. I should not price it separately. I have to consider it in the process, the production process itself, and see at the end how much it's what is its contribution in the end result of the product with the price, with the selling price.
So if it represents 10% of the production process, then
if it's represent 10% from the production process, and in the bottom line you will find that the total, let's say, profit coming from this product is giving you, as an economy or as a country, I don't want to say number, but higher than what you can achieve if you sell the gas alone with whatever price. So I have to rely on the value added process in every sector. How much I'm using from the natural gas with whatever price, it's a local. First of all, I should not offer the natural gas to the industries in a price higher than the export price.
How much is it offered? How much do you buy it for?
We don't buy now, but I'm looking at, if we took the cement as an example, the cement industry is importing now a coal with around $500 million per year. Okay?
Coal?
Coal.
Coal.
Yeah. Or bit coke, whatever, with almost $500 million.
$500 million.
$500 million. If you offer them the natural gas with a price competing with the price of coal, it will be definitely higher than the export price, and you are going to save $500 million. This has to be considered. When you price it, you have to consider both dimensions. But if we stick to pricing or targeting a certain price to, what is the option? What is the alternative? The alternative is that if you don't consume it locally, you are selling outside with a less price. So how you can say...
So with one signature, you
No,
can
how you
save
can say-
$500 million per year.
Yes.
With one signature.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the competitive edge that we have at this stage. And how can we magnify this competitive edge?
First of all, we have to be aware what is our competitive edge. And it's different in different, okay, let's say there is a kind of certain indicator or competitive edge across the board, which is the location, the
Labor,
the environment, or whatever, okay? And there is a specific edges for each industry. I have to assess this clearly with experts, and then decide on our priorities, where we should focus.
What would you say those are?
Whatever industry has a vertical integration in its process, from the raw materials up to the end product, I have to focus on.
So petrochemicals you're talking?
Petrochemicals, you can talk. A lot of mining works, you have to. We are far from
exploring our potential.
Exactly, in this sector specifically, in fertilizers, a lot of things, in textile,
But you have huge potential and you have huge effort exerted in the textile sector, in the petrochemical sector. You have huge efforts exerted in the infrastructure, paving the way for the ease of production, the smooth ease of production.
Yes.
So these are all part of the competitive edge.
And this is what I want to highlight, because there is a lot of high value things done in the country over the past 6 years, which is preparing the ground for a jump in economy,
a leap,
if we utilize it in the with the right way, in the right directions.
I'll take that as a closing statement, and thank you very much, Engineer Medhat Stefanos, the Vice Chairman of the Chamber of Building Materials in the Federation of Egyptian Industries. A pleasure, as usual, having this time to chat with you.
Thank you
very much for joining us. Thank you for being with us. See you same time next week. I'm Ayman Salah. Good night.